Hello friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Let's start our video with one of the greatest forms of revenge, just sitting back and watching others harm themselves when you could have easily stopped it if they had let you. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Since you're the one with all the seniority, fine. Back in the early 2000s, I worked in landscaping. Had a guy on the crew with a real purpose in life. Mostly it was acting like a jerk, but occasionally it was to remind everyone that he had seniority over half of us. One glorious day, this shining example of ego was with our crew. It was a hot day and most of the guys were shirtless. We were doing maintenance on a property that bordered railroad tracks with a swampy bit about 2 yards wide and about 5 yards long right before the easement. Those of us on the regular crew knew to leave that area well enough alone as it was a patch of shoulder-high nettle. He gets a little flustered when we tell him that we just leave that part. The property owner doesn't mind. He becomes insistent that we remove all those weeds and stalks off towards the patch. I yell to him that he doesn't want to do that. He turns in full glory, shouts that he has seniority, and sure as hell doesn't need a woman telling him what to do, and he knows what he's doing, so shut my mouth. All right then. I exchange a knowing smile and a shrug with the other crew members. We all watch him walk into a tall patch of nettle shirtless and start pulling it up with no gloves. It didn't take long for him to feel the knowing sting of what he'd done. He now starts yelling at me for not stopping him. His whole torso is turning bright red, almost as red as his face turned when he realized that the whole crew had watched his little demonstration, and the foreman is laughing so hard he can barely gasp out that he needs to finish it since he started it. So I also got to watch him get a verbal warning from the foreman, and the next day he got a talking to from the big boss about how to speak to his co-workers and where officially he stood on the company ladder with his seniority complex. And our second story, HOA revenge. My family and I used to live in a fairly upper middle class neighborhood that had an HOA. The HOA seemed pretty mellow and dedicated to their original purpose and intent, maintaining property values. As these things usually happen, a few new people got voted in, things started to get a bit more OCD and militant. Here are a few examples. We had to throw away our basketball hoop because the backboard was opaque and the new requirement was glass backboards only. We got a ticket because my dad forgot Monday was Memorial Day and put the trash out. Of course, trash collection had been pushed back to Tuesday, so we got a fine for having the trash can out overnight. We went on vacation for a week and the grass got a bit longer than usual, but nothing unreasonable. Got threatening letters and a fine. We weren't allowed to have cars parked on the street for any reason. My biggest pet peeve was that anyone under 18 had to be accompanied to the pool by their parent. My 17-year-old self wasn't too fond of having to get my mom to come bake in the sun anytime I wanted to go for a swim. Nor was she. I was on a Navy JROTC field trip to a naval base that I'll leave unnamed for anonymity reasons, and stumbled upon what I'll still regard to be one of my greatest ideas. I was in the Navy Exchange, basically Walmart for Navy personnel, looking at some of their surplus stuff when I came across an ejection seat dye marker. These are those very powerful dye markers that are attached to ejection seats so that in the event of a water landing after ejection, the pilot can be found easily, floating in the middle of a huge patch of green-dyed water. So I bought it for $8, a bargain at any price, and took it home. One night, after the HOA instituted unenforceable 10 p.m. curfew for adolescents under 18, I took a little stroll over to the pool and tossed that bad Larry on in. Much to my delight and nervous horror, it worked exactly as designed. The whole pool was neon green in a matter of a minute or two. Of course, I got the hell out of Dodge. The next day, as I drove past on my way home from school, I noticed that the pool was empty, but still looked very green. In the ensuing weeks, I came to find out that the pool had to be drained, 660,000 gallons of water, and a professional power washing company had to be brought in to clean the pool basin concrete, which had absorbed the dye, and the pool had to be refilled and retreated with all of the relevant chemicals. All told, I think it cost the HOA $10,000. 2 years later, the HOA president was busted by the IRS and arrested for embezzling $70,000 worth of HOA funds. He went to the big house for a couple of years. And before anyone tears into me for wasting water, this was in the South, not California. We have more water than we want down here. And our last story. Little backstory. My dad used to flip houses for a living. Back around 2010, he got the bright idea that he was going to eventually marry the woman he cheated on my mom with back in 2000. His health wasn't the greatest back then, so instead of flipping some of the houses, he turned them into rentals. In 2012, he also decided that he was going to put my name on the title for one of the rental properties so that after he married, if he died, the house and income would come to me. I signed all the paperwork. House is technically mine. Now to last month. Dad calls me up from jail and says, "Hey, remember that house on X Street? We've got a realtor interested in buying it. Are you interested in going ahead and selling? We'll split the profit and you can use part of my half to pay for the funeral." My thought was cool. Get my inheritance early and the stress that comes with planning a funeral is taken care of. So the deal is made and he calls me again and tells me to have the lawyer cut 2 checks, each for half the sale amount. I'm very confused, so I ask why. "I need you to take half for yourself, then on the other half take X amount and save it for my funeral and give the remainder to Jane. That way you'll only have to pay half the amount in taxes." Doesn't work this way. Jane, fake name obviously, as I found out shortly before this, divorced my dad 3 years ago, shortly after he went to jail. He won't get out for another 5 years if ever. My confusion triples, so I asked why I'd be giving her anything as she lives in the $500,000 house he bought and stupidly put in her name. He gets into a huge huff and tells me just to do what he says and not ask stupid questions or else he'll stop the deal, which he can't. We close tomorrow. He's been calling and emailing me daily to ask about closing so that Jane can come collect her check, LOL. I've told him each day that she won't have a check because the lawyer won't split the payment like that. It's my hope that neither of them listen to me and she shows up expecting me to give her anything. The most she'll get is my 2 cents about what a POS she is, and that if she wants anything from this sale, I want the money she's been collecting in rent for the last 3 years. After talking with my brother, I've decided that I'm still going to go ahead and pay for his funeral. I'm also going to take his half, after funeral costs, and set it aside in a separate savings account so that if he needs anything while in jail, he can ask me for it then if he gets out. I'll give him the remaining amount. I know he's going to get mad, but the level of how much I care is very slim. What's the worst he can do? Not call me? Edit. So to clarify some things, I'm a guy. When I asked why Jane doesn't just sell the house and buy something more in her range, his argument was that she can't get what the house is worth, so why sell it? I argued that that's the job of the real estate agent, not Jane. We went back and forth until I gave him a choice. He could let me pay for the funeral, then put the rest into a savings account and give him the money whenever he needed it until his release, then he gets the remaining amount. Option 2 was to give Jane the money minus the taxes and his funeral, and neither of them contact me again. I'm sad to say he chose to give her the money. Edit 2. So I did some digging about Jane divorcing Dad. Turns out that they divorced so that Dad could qualify for another, cheaper lawyer. The one that was with him originally really threw him under the bus and charged him a huge amount to do it. When I asked why she's getting the money again, he went off saying they still love each other, gag, and that she's still his wife and blah blah blah. I just hope they're happy with their money because my wife and I are completely done. I'm still going to pay for the funeral out of his half, mostly so that my brother and I don't have to worry about it when the time comes. I've also seen comments about, well, it's your dad's money, why do you get to decide? It's really not his money until I decide to give it to him, which I am. I'm the one that owns the house, I'm the one doing the deal, and I'm the one that's on the hook for the taxes. Dad/Jane getting anything out of this is more of me attempting to be a good son. I could have 100% said screw it and kept all of it, but then I'd have to not only deal with them, Jane somehow got my number and address yesterday, but I'd also have to deal with myself. I can be cold-hearted at times, but even I'm not that bad. Final update. So a quick and final update. Jane did show up to the closing despite being told not to. I looked her dead in the face and asked, "Why are you here, Jane?" in a not very pleasant tone. Went through the closing, and as we were leaving, she started talking to us, telling me about how she had to pump X amount of money into that house recently, how she's getting sued for a supposed dog bite on another property my dad had a land contract on, how Dad said I'll be giving her a little something from this sale, all while never once asking me how I'm feeling, recovering from a broken hip back from February. Then she dropped a bomb on me. It turns out that after my dad got arrested and she'd have to be the one to take care of the bills, she dropped the insurance on the house. I looked at her and asked her to repeat that and was told that she couldn't get insurance on it because the house was in disrepair. Like, WTF. I know for a fact the house had insurance prior to Dad getting arrested. He's not actually that stupid. Had anything happened on that property prior to today, I would have been liable out the butt because of her. This info alone sealed her fate with me. She'll not get a penny out of me, and my entire family agrees with me, not to mention every one of you guys. I'm still going ahead with the funeral plans and the idea of giving Dad his remaining should he get out. My brother and aunt are both of the opinion he's not. I'll put money on his commissary each month out of it, and if he starts going off on me, I'm just going to block the prison's number and deactivate Google Voice. How he's talking to me. Please, OP, find yourself a lawyer and an accountant on this. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.